All
I,
right. How
I
about
do remember what I was going to say at the end, but I don't know if you want to end the recording before I. It doesn't matter. It's about Studio Ghibli.
Oh, he's gonna swear.
I'm not going to
go
swear.
right ahead, Matt? Let's.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Matt Smith. We hope you enjoyed today's movie discussion. Thanks for listening.
And let's jump right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the BTB Music Club. Nope. The BTB Movie Club. My name is Tim Larson. We are here to watch the 191st movie in the club. It is Matt Smith's pick. Spirited Away is the name, from 2001, by a writer director whose name I will let Matt pronounce. Matt, it's your show. Enjoy. Take it away.
All right. Yeah, so this was a movie I had not seen before. It is from the Studio Ghibli. We never really settled that last week. And it is by Hayao Miyazaki. I think I got that right. Hilty is shaking his head, so I'm assuming
Bravo.
I'm
Good job.
right. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about it. One of the ranked as one of the best animated films in the US. So I will start with Dan.
Okay. Um,
And the man, Sneaky
yeah,
Dan.
first time I've seen it. Um, at first, like the first half hour, I'm kind of like, what is going on here? It was a little strange. All these spirits eating people and doing things, but then I started, getting the kind of message of the movie. In the beginning, she's kind of overwhelmed with doubt because she's moving to another area, and she's always clutching her parents' hand. But then, I see at the end of the movie, she has, you know, gone beyond that, and she's matured, kind of her coming of age here. She conquers her fears of the unknown. Um, so it was a good movie. I liked it. I wasn't sure going in whether I was gonna like it or not. Um, And another thing in the beginning, I think with the music, you hear when they're showing the parents in the car, the music is kind of upbeat. The parents are happy to be moving into a new house or whatever. But then when they show her, it's a different story. The music kind of goes uh, into a little darker place, a little melancholy, I guess is the word for it. When you look at her face, um, it's not very uplifting at all. Um, but um, there is one thing I was a little uh, questioning towards the end. It's like, what does the hairband symbolize? When they weave the hairband and give it to her, is that kind of tying things up at the end? I'm not real sure about that one. So maybe somebody else will help me out with that. Um, but yeah, really, I didn't think that this movie was just for kids. I think adults would enjoy this also. Um, One thing I don't know if it's this director or not, but he really the last 10 minutes of the movie, he really like wraps everything up pretty quickly in the last 10 minutes. You find out Haku's, name, she gets with her back with her parents. I mean, everything really quickly wraps up. Um, But I thought that was pretty interesting. I was looking at the time and I'm like, this movie's almost over and there's a lot of unanswered questions, but it all kind of comes together there at the end. The other thing is the question
Isn't it a little early,
that
Tim, to be muting people? What's up
He
with
wasn't
that?
doing anything wrong.
I
Tim,
Jeez, Tim. Like,
God.
what's
I
up?
I'm
What's
not
going
muting by
on?
the force at this point. That's
sorry, that was me. I hit the space bar on my computer and that caused that.
did like a I Dream of Jeannie thing. Muted
Um,
Nice.
everybody.
I like it.
at the end when he says to her, "Don't look back." I was a little curious as to that. Whenever I hear that "Don't look back." I always think of the Old Testament when Lot's family is leaving Sodom, and "Don't look back," and she looks back and gets turned into a pillar of stone or whatever.
Salt.
Was it salt? Okay,
It's salt.
all right. But for me, I think it means that her life is now moving forward and don't dwell on things in the past. So I think that's I think for me that's why he said that. Other people may have a different opinion about that,
Look at
but
Dan going deep. I like it.
Uh-huh.
but yeah, a good movie. I enjoyed it. Um, wasn't sure I was going to. I haven't seen too many animated movies, but I did enjoy it. Good pick.
Well, good. Glad you enjoyed. Did you watch it in English?
Yes.
You didn't like read the subtitles or anything?
No, no, I didn't.
Did you recognize, I don't know if you maybe you looked this up. Have you probably looked some stuff up obviously because you did some deep dive there, but did you recognize any of the American actors without looking it up?
I did not. The
It's
only actor that I saw that I knew was the guy from MASH. He was one of the characters. What's his name? Charles from MASH. I saw that he was one of the voices,
um
but he
let
was
me
the
s-
only one.
interesting. Yeah, I didn't recognize I recognized one um in the movie, but I didn't recognize. And then I looked it up and I realized there's a lot of actually pretty famous American actors who did voices for this. It was in connection with Disney and Pixar, so I'm sure that's part of the reason why. But interesting. Yeah, I agree with you about the "Don't look back" to Dan. I think that was sort of a message of you're growing up, right? Don't dwell on your past. And I think the hairband or the headband or whatever. I looked at a couple different things. I tried to do a little bit of, in-depth analysis on it. One of the common themes was just that she knew it was all a real experience. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't in her head, it wasn't in some different world. Like it actually happened, and that was sort of her connection to that experience, so that she knew that all those things really happened. So that
Okay.
seems to be the common answer to that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so and I'll talk at the end, so I won't give away too much. Aaron, have you go next. You're muted. You're still muted.
The spacebar thing was working. I didn't know that did that. And then I did it a few times and I thought it was cool, but then I couldn't unmute myself. So seems to be working now.
We're here to learn, guys. We're here to
We're
learn.
here to learn. Lifelong learners, all of us teachers in their own ways, even if you're not paid by a school district. It's one to grow on. Well, I just hadn't even thought of it. Did not recognize a single person's voice. I was not thinking like, "Oh my god, I know who that is," or "Who is that? I can't place it." Wasn't even close. Um, didn't even cross my mind. But now that I look it up, I'm on like a Spirited Away site, and it's got like the actor next to the character, and it's like, "Oh my god, I know like most of them." So that's kind of cool. Had no idea. Don't want to step on anybody's toes with this one because it's not my thing, but thanks for bringing that up, Matt. I had a different experience. Had heard about this movie for years. Um, like animation, like different things. I wouldn't say I'm too much into anime or Japanimation or like looking for that kind of stuff. Um, but knew I needed to see this at some point. Thought it was pretty. There was a lot that I was like, I don't get it. I don't get why this has a 96% rating in both critic and viewer. Like, I get maybe the critics liking it because it was stuff that was over my head or metaphors that were, I don't know, outside, not cultural, but everybody seems to love it. And I'm like, I don't get it. I thought it was just confusing and just jumps to me that didn't make sense. Like, you just know that these different spirits do different things, or the whole bathhouse for spirits. It was just very strange. And I don't usually have a problem with strange, and I didn't have a problem with it. I nodded off a couple times real quick um, in that first 45 minutes, just because I was comfortable on the couch and I was ready to go. Had a good breakfast, but I I can't even say there was like a turning point that, oh my God, now I understand, or it's got my interest. I guess maybe when the twin sister showed up, kind of thing. Um, I think that's a little past halfway, maybe, if I remember correctly. But from there, I had no problem. I was totally in, and I was really trying to figure out if there were things to figure out. Um, One of my problems that I tried to wrap my head around at the end after watching it, being like, huh, that was not what I thought it was going to be. Um, was because maybe I'd seen so much of it, and I'd seen so much of the faceless character, and that had been, I don't know, maybe pushed in what do you want to say, like mainstream culture, what do you call that? I don't know, it's just part of the, I've seen it a lot in video clips or memes or whatever. So I knew what that was. I've even seen it as like a piggy bank and stuff. So I knew the mask really wasn't its face. It had a mouth under it. And I had no idea what that character was going to be. I had an idea, I guess, and maybe that tripped me up, because what it became was nothing than what I thought this. I thought it was going to be a girl who at the start, new adventure, changing schools, changing life. Something happens and this spirit helps her, like an Obi-Wan, or, whatever, like a wise, helpful, knowledgeable character that's going to, empower her and get her through. And it was not that at all.
No.
Did anybody else, when you first see that character, think of Eyes Wide Shut? Am I the only one that was like, oh, we got
I
a
did not
crossover
think of
here?
that.
Here's Eyes Wide Shut character walking around stalking people.
Well,
No,
you
like I
found the
said-
connection, Jim. You found the connection he was going for.
You
Yeah.
Yeah, like I
This one
said, for
behaved a little
everything,
differently.
I thought it was going to be a very different movie. A lot of the things I just didn't get, the three heads bouncing around, and
Yeah.
a lot of the
weird.
magic
That
and
was weird.
mysticism. It just, and I guess it's not supposed to, and it just didn't make sense. I'm like, what the hell is the soot is carrying the charcoal, and it seems really heavy, because the girl can barely pick up a brick of it. I'm like, not even the physics make sense, but it's a spirit world. It's not supposed to. The mud man was, and I knew it wasn't a splinter, but I didn't realize it was going to be, half a junkyard that they pull out of the thing. And then it becomes this beautiful white dragon thing that floats away and we never hear of it again. So there was just a lot of weirdness. I'm glad I've seen it. I don't think I'll watch it again. I just didn't understand it. And I don't think I'm stupid, but maybe I'm stupid.
No, I don't. I would agree with you on a lot of it. I think some of it's lost in translation, literally. I think we probably don't understand the cultural reference. I think you mentioned it too. Eric. Like, I don't think we just don't get all those cultural references because it's not our culture. I think one of the best comparisons when I'm reading about the movie and kind of doing a deep dive, some people have compared it to like the Japanese Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Or Look Through the Looking Glass. There's a little bit of ridiculousness. Like Alice in Wonderland doesn't make complete sense if you read it or watch it either way. Like there's some silly things that happen and they don't all seem to apply to the plot, but they just sort of happen. I think a very similar thing goes on here. It's a very big fantasy sort of spiritual thing.
And now that you mentioned it, I couldn't put my finger on it when I saw it, but there did seem to be, I specifically at one point, it seemed like she had shrunk down for some reason when she was like running through something or by something. I don't know if it was like the second time she was down in where the charcoal stuff was, where I'm going to call him the arachnid guy, the guys that she originally tried to get the job from. I want to say there was
Kamaji.
Yeah, she was running past some stuff and it seemed like she was too small. And that's weird. And I didn't get the Alice in Wonderland, but that would have, and not that it's any kind of direct reference. And like I said, it could have just been me waking up.
I mean, even just reading, like you mentioned the guy, the Kamaji guy, his name literally the way they wrote it translated to boiler geezer. So like everybody's like, like everybody's name like translated into what they were. And so like I think we just lose that because we don't speak that language, or have anything to do with that culture. So I'm sure that's part of it.
And just because I'm looking at that screen that has the people, so John Ratzenberger did not know it was him. He voiced his assistant manager. And it's a guy who, has a decent part, and just called assistant manager. I did like the music. I thought at the very end, I thought it was they had to have been paying an homage to the end of Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. I thought there was very similar tones and even repetitions of notes, which was uplifting. There was also, I liked the music. It was confusing because I didn't think it matched towards the start. Very uplifting and, high flute notes or piccolo notes or whatever. And it's like kind of scary what's supposed to be happening. But like, I think it was when maybe the spirits got off the steamboat or whatever that was when they came over. And it's like, to me, it just didn't match, but I still thought it was pretty cool. Because I thought the music was good. I thought the animation was phenomenal. So not saying I hated the whole thing. I'm saying there's parts that I didn't understand and that I found it confusing and I think took away from my overall enjoyment. So
Appreciate that. Yeah, no, I agree. The music was great. Animation was great. So, and that might be why a lot of people like it too. They can ignore some of the other stuff because it is a pretty beautifully made film. So,
yep.
I don't think it's an accident that while they're in a car, it kind of sounds like an after-school special for a little bit.
Yeah.
Until they get, through the tunnel, then the music changes.
Yeah, while Lauren Holly and Michael Chiklis are talking to you.
Yeah. That's cool to see that. So when they went in, how long were they in there?
That's a great question. I'd like to hear other people think that too.
They were in there dust long.
Yeah.
Well, the building was red when they went into the tunnel, and it was gray and overgrown and mossy.
Yeah.
When they came out, like Dad doesn't have a job and their house is gone.
Right.
I mean, they're screwed.
I did for a second at the end. I like the way they ended it, but for a second at the end, I almost wish they would have driven up to the house. So you could just see, like, wait a minute, why are you people? Or it's just knocked down. There's a mall there or something.
Right. Yeah. But just to give us, was it a day? Was it 6 months? Was it 9 years?
It was a while.
No idea.
For sure. Yeah. No, that's an interesting question. I'd like to hear other people's take on that too. So we'll go to Aaron. You're good, right?
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
All right. I will go to Mike Wilden.
The couple of notes that I had on it before I get into how I felt about this movie. I love the cool little soot spider fuzzy things. Those I thought were adorable and kind of cracked me up. And I absolutely loved the scene when like she carries the coal over and throws it into the furnace for him, and they kind of just look at each other and then they immediately just squish themselves with they all do it on purpose. I was like, all right, that's pretty good. So I love those things. I hate that giant baby. That was one of the most unpleasant things in an animated movie that they could have repeatedly thrown at us, and it was not fun to hear. It was not fun to look at. It was just disturbing.
Just
He
before
was
you go
great at the end of the movie.
did you see
he was great. Bo,
yeah, did you see the English voice actor for it?
No, who was that?
Tara Strong, who's a powerhouse in the voice acting business. I was really surprised to see she did that voice. I like the character better now that I know Tara Strong did the voice.
Well, I did not end up doing any further research on this because outside of everything I said, I hated my experience watching this movie.
All right.
I did enjoy. I was intrigued. I was very intrigued until she got to the boiler room. I was pretty intrigued by that. Everything kind of, there was some mystery, and it just like it seemed a little more straightforward. But as soon as she showed up, and was it Kamanji, the old guy with the four arms? As soon as it got to that point, it kind of lost me. And as I was trying to focus on what was happening, I realized something is really just throwing me off of this. And what it was is the English dub. I don't know. I was talking to Tim about this earlier. He said he watched it in Japanese, not to throw that off for you or anything, but maybe it was just because my TV was older, so it didn't have that option with the Max app. I don't know, but I only had the option to watch the English dub. And, I enjoyed Pokemon and Digimon and some other animated stuff. There's some anime back in the day. I get it. The English dubs can be hit or miss, but I felt like this was all miss. To me, the English dub for this was so bad that it actually took away from the story. Aaron, you were talking earlier about how like you didn't really quite understand what was going on. I remember watching this, and we said the animation is great, and I was like, I feel like this story should be very, very good. And in Japanese, if I was reading what they actually were saying, that like with the English subtitles, I'd probably really enjoy this. But I was just listening to this shitty English dub. It felt like the dialogue was written by a room full of children, and before they actually wrote the dialogue, the producers came in and said, "All right, here, you've got an hour." Like it just is kind of thrown together. Like they're talking about plot points, and then like the old lady is just says something like, "Oh, that's not good. We're gonna have to clean that bath out later." Like that's not important to what's happening. Like they're trying to free the spirit from this mud, and she's talking about this. It's like this. It was just there was a huge disconnect
Okay,
for
Mike,
me
are you telling
between.
me that if so, what I had the option of was the 2001 Japanese with subtitles or 2002 American um, dub. If
I
I would
had
have
none
watched
of
the
that.
Japanese with subtitles, the words would have been different from what I was
Well,
hearing. I would have
that
read something
that's
different.
always true because they have
I
to
didn't
fill
know that.
stuff in that don't they have to fill
Yeah.
stuff in that wouldn't
Yeah.
make sense to us if we
Yeah.
didn't hear it. So
And
I never
with
knew
English
that.
dubs, with English dubs for anime, they don't always succeed, but they try to make the words fit in with the way their mouths are moving. So if they're saying things in Japanese in the animated version, it's not like Godzilla where somebody's going to be like, "Look, it's Godzilla," like where their mouth is moving and they're clearly not speaking, they're just speaking over it.
sometimes I wish this
It's
wasn't an audio only
Yeah, can I see
podcast.
that
yeah,
again? I'd like to see that
Because
again.
that
no,
was actually
I did
really
it
good.
once.
It was really good.
Thank you for that. But it wasn't like it's not like that. They actually try and fit words into it, so like they can come across as kind of quirky sometimes. And and this one I just felt like they just didn't. It felt like to me like they didn't even try with the English dub, and it just it took me out of it. I was watching this movie the entire time, frustrated because I was like, this looks like it should be an awesome movie. Like I would love to know what the actual story is, but every time I take 10 seconds to try and listen to what's going on, somebody says some childish thing like, "Oh, don't look at me. It wasn't me. I have to." Yeah, some stupid thing. I can't even come up with an example off the top of my head. It was just like I said, it felt like it was written by children very fast. That's how it seemed to me.
So I got to rewatch it,
Um,
huh?
but I didn't have the option to watch it in Japanese, and like part of the way I halfway through for the first part of it I was like, I'm gonna just push through it. I'm gonna just push through it because I've already put this much work in it. And halfway through I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll switch anyway. Screw it, I'll watch the rest of this in Japanese. I can't take this. And then I looked, and again, maybe it was just because my particular TV is old, so the app wasn't out, wasn't updated. I don't know, but I didn't have the option to watch it in Japanese. And then my internet went out for a little bit, and my reaction was, "Oh, thank God," because I had an unintended break. And I still finished it, and I tried. I really did. I did not enjoy my experience with this. I also felt like a lot of the lines were read as like, I know I've kind of been shouting here, but it felt like everybody was
Oh,
yelling their lines.
she
Like the
was
main,
yelling a lot.
yeah, the main character maybe once in a while kind of got quiet, but every line was like, I'm reading my line like this. Hey Matt, how are we doing? Oh my God, look at that dragon. Like everything had the exact same inflection on it. So it's kind of like, well, what's important and what isn't? That's, I mean, if you're that's part of why it was just such a disconnect for me. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I would have I wish that I had watched this in Japanese so that I could have given it a fair chance and hopefully actually enjoyed it. I'm sorry, Matt. I think it's a good pick. It's just it was my
Yeah.
TV's fault for not letting me go to the way I wanted to watch it.
Well, like I said on
But yeah,
my Max app through my TV, it was I had just searched it, voice searched it, and both came up, and I had to look up which one of these do I want to watch, and it told me that 2001 was the Japanese version with dub or with subtitles, and 2002 was the American dub.
yeah.
I am gonna go back and watch it again and see, because I always thought they translated it and the people were just reading what would have been on the screen in front of me. So
So
Well,
it's
when
funny.
you
Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
no, just whenever anything is dubbed in a different language, there's parts that need to be added in for additional context. So, like a good example of this is that if you watch the English dub version of this, they specifically have to point out that this is a bathhouse because a lot of people, if they watch this and they don't have that context of what a bathhouse is, a lot of people actually think that this is a brothel. Like, no, those are two separate things. So that's why, like, there's a line. It kind of feels a little awkward when you put it when it's in the English dub. It's like, oh, hey, look, it's a bathhouse. I'm like, yeah, no shit, but like, I've seen this before, and I was like, that's weird. That I don't remember that being said in the Japanese version, but for Americans, like I've never been to a bathhouse. Bathhouses are not common here. So okay, fine, cool. So it's just to add extra context for us dumb Americans and such.
Right. But it felt like they just went overboard with it. Like they were just trying too hard to get, the American humor part of it, and they just weren't get like the lady that's like helping her scrub the thing multiple times is like, oh, you're such a like I don't she called her a klutz or like
She called her
a
stupid a
like
couple times, I'm pretty sure.
yeah, like you're so dim or whatever it was. And she says that, and then like the girl's crying, and then she's like, "Oh, hey, what's wrong?" Again, by the way, in the exact same inflection and tone, but it's like, "Oh, you're such an idiot." Oh, what's wrong? And it's just like, how am I supposed to process what's happening here? I
Yeah,
just,
I kind of chalk that
I'm
up.
sorry. I'll stop yelling.
No, you're okay. I kind of chalk that up like to your specific example of there must be, again, something we're losing in translation, right? Like if those two were speaking in Japanese to each other, it would make more sense. Like just
Yes.
as a cultural thing, like, oh, you're so stupid might be the translated word, but in Japan it might mean you're, klutzy or you're forgetful or whatever it is.
Or even in that case, I mean, like maybe the people that made, when you actually listen to it in Japanese, maybe the actual actress is, that's doing the voice is like, "Oh, you're such an idiot." And then she starts crying and she goes, "Oh, hey, what's wrong?"
Right.
Maybe like there's
Right.
actually,
The
but
inflection,
again,
right?
it felt like they just didn't even try. Like they just went to a room full of 12-year-olds and said, "Hey, you've got an hour and a half, write a script for this." That's how it felt for me as far as the English dub went.
And
And okay, I'm
yeah, no,
done.
and
I
that's
am
funny
muting myself.
because it's funny because this was
far.
brought to the attention of America. It was basically brought to Disney by a Pixar guy who often helped Marazuki. I said it right the first
Mi-
time.
Miyazaki. Yeah,
Miyazaki, sorry.
It was John Lasseter, who is a bigwig at Pixar. He's a huge fan of a lot of his stuff beforehand, and then he was the one that convinced Disney to, acquire the North American distribution rights for
Yeah,
this.
yeah, so their team of people, they had a team of people writing the English script and trying to make it match the mouths still and putting the dialogue together. So it's just funny, your take on that. I don't necessarily disagree with you. I do think there was some weird things, especially, and again, her yelling all the time. She was yelling constantly in this movie at everybody. And I just chalked that up to, well, that must have been how the Japanese actress did it. Like she must have been, or whatever. That's how they heard it. And so that's just kind of what they did. But I don't disagree with you. I think there were some awkward ones. I usually in a movie like this, I would watch both. Like when we watched Akira, I watched both because I do think you lose something when they dub it. I just didn't have time to watch both, so I just watched the dubbed version to make it easier on myself.
The
But
last thing I'll say there, I think that just as kind of a funny, who knows, maybe they thought that all Americans yell. Because maybe
we
we're
do.
just the loud, obnoxious, dumb Americans. So maybe that's part of it too. Anyway,
I have
that's all I got.
I have some stuff on that. I'll mention it when it's my turn.
All right. Well, then go ahead, Hilty. You are going to mention it. You can mention it now.
Sure. Um, I've seen this before, and I love this movie. I think that it is great on a lot of technical levels. So the animation is great, and it's weird because this is gonna sound stupid, but just go with me on this. It's kind of weird seeing a hand-drawn animated movie nowadays because you don't see those very often anymore. And Studio Ghibli specifically resists doing computer animation anything because and this is kind of part of Miyazaki's way of making movies is that so traditionally in Hollywood you write a script, you write a screenplay, and then you go off the when you go into production you're going off the script and just all the notes and all that shit. Miyazaki doesn't do that. He has the story in his head and he's the one that draws a lot of these storyboards. So in addition to directing, writing, he's also like one of the animators and he draws all this stuff. So sometimes it helps the story kind of grow organically in a way, but also on another way, it also sometimes makes the story a bit of a mess. And I think in other instances, this is a mess. I particularly like this story a little bit because Matt compared it to Alice in Wonderland, and that's kind of how I compare it as well. Is that I agree wholeheartedly on that. It is kind of like an Alice in Wonderland type of thing. So, um, Matt, I'm kind of curious. Why did you pick Spirited Away over some of the other ones?
So I have never seen a Studio Ghibli movie before. So my thought process was, well, this one was really popular in America. It won the Oscar, right? And it's ranked on almost every list that you look up of top movies. So I said this has got to be a good one to get into it with. So I did read up on some things, and it was not the choice given by everybody for, hey, you should start with this one. Some of the older films were, but I decided for this group, it might be easier for all of us to sort of dip the toe in with something that other Americans clearly enjoyed. You're muted. There you go.
This won an Oscar.
It
Oh
did
yeah,
for
it
best
won
animated.
best animated
Wow.
Oscar.
Not
And
even not even foreign language. Like it was period best animated.
so not only that, it beat out a bunch of so this year for best animated feature, it beat out Lilo and Stitch and Ice Age. Those were the two movies. And
Mm.
the English dub version of this, the voice of the main character is also the voice of Lilo in Lilo and Stitch. So if you close your eyes, it's like, oh, because in Lilo and Stitch, she's shouting all her lines there too. So it might be a performance choice rather than, rather than the dub.
I'm
So
trying to
Well,
look it
it's
up
a
real quick.
poor one.
I'm trying to look it up real quick, and I can't find it, Hilty. Maybe you know, or anybody might know, not just Hilty. So I had said the IMDb scores were through the roof, both in critics and audience.
Mhm.
Do they give separate? Because, like I said, I clicked on 2002 American dub version, and it was a whole different pick this one or pick this one. It wasn't like pick choices after you pick. Um, do they have the same, like, do they differentiate in IMDb scores or Rotten Tomato scores or any other scores between the 2001 2002 version?
no, they
Okay.
they don't. It's just all kind of compiled into one. You'll see it in the reviews sometimes. Some reviewers are would say it's like, yeah, I watched the dub version, didn't get it, didn't like it. And also, this is to say that's completely fair. Like the unless you're, very invested and steeped in Japanese culture and Japanese folklore, you're not going to get a lot of this. And that, like, I'm not, and I was lost a lot of the time as well. I had to do a ton of research on a lot of this stuff, and I kind of equated it to showing the Japanese Shrek, because it's like, oh, here's all these fairy tale creatures and fairy tale people that you're not going to know anything about. Have fun, type of thing. So it's
That's a good analogy right there. Yep.
so if you came away from this not understanding it, yeah, you're probably not going to, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Um, so and Matt, the reason why I ask is because you're right. This one is a good entryway into Studio Ghibli stuff because um this is one that put the studio on more of a global map. The one that was released before this, I think it was Princess Mononoke, was the one that kind of brought them a little bit more prominence. I would highly recommend checking out more of their stuff because you do notice that there are a lot of consistent themes because Miyazaki has his fingerprints all over these movies. And the main themes that you're going to find with a lot of these movies, a lot of these movies have a young or a female protagonist. And the reason why is because Miyazaki very much believes in feminism, but also he thinks that younger younger characters, they're sometimes a little bit more accessible to audiences, particularly for adults sometimes. And I'm not necessarily sure I agree with that all the time, but kind of wants to make the stories a little bit more relatable and a little bit more accessible to everybody. And a lot of times he doesn't like to tell stories about kids growing up per se, because I even though I equate this feels like a growing up, a story about growing up,
Yeah.
in a sense. Dan, when you mentioned the hairband, I equate that to, she's growing up in a sense, in addition to, all of this kind of being symbolized as being real. But I Miyazaki has said that he didn't want it to be about like coming of age. He wanted it to be something about I she unlocked something that was already inside of her to begin with. So not so much growing up, it's just realizing the potential that you had in the first place, which I'm not necessarily sure I got all of that, but I see where he's coming from perspective. Um, he Miyazaki also is very big on the environment as well. And you have two scenes involving cleaning water and rivers and things like that in this. So not as prominent in this, but still something nonetheless that he explores in a lot of other movies. Um, one of his other big themes and kind of just Studio Ghibli does in general is this notion of the westernization of Japan. And how you can kind of interpret that is, so you look at the bathhouse in general and how a lot of the spirits, they are living a very Japanese traditional lifestyle, very minimalist, very traditional Japanese clothing, all of that stuff. Um, so for example, the parents, they're driving a nice modern car, and they're wearing Western clothes, and then they engorge themselves and they turn into pigs, which I think is a bit on the nose, but whatever, it's fine. But like the theme park as well, the theme park is supposed to represent, Western culture infiltrating Japanese life. So, um, and then the witch, for example, the witch, who I guess you can call her an antagonist, because the witch, like a lot of other antagonists in Miyazaki's works, they're not complete antagonists. You can find something redeeming about them. So, and because he doesn't believe that he doesn't believe that a lot of people out there are like completely 100% evil. So you gotta have something redeeming about these people. But anyways, the witch, she looks very Western. She has very Western clothing. She lives in a lavish house, and she lives or a lavish room. And it looks just very European sense. So this is something that Miyazaki has talked about a lot, is that just harkening back to traditional ways and what post World War II Japan has kind of bent down to because of what happened during World War II, specifically post atomic bomb. And that's why you get stuff like this. This is why we got Godzilla. This is why we got a lot of stuff from Japan at this time, because it's commenting on what life is like post World War II when they got waxed beyond belief, but also because they're recognizing that their culture is slowly but surely being infiltrated and destroyed is a bit of a strong word, but you know, being exasperated in favor of more Western ideology. And then there's a lot of there's like one other thing that Miyazaki likes to talk about a lot. That's not as prevalent as this, is that he is a big pacifist, and a lot of the other Studio Ghibli stuff, they talk about specifically about using or doing or what the toll of pacifism is in the face of humanity's love of violence. So if you love themes like that, go watch some of the other stuff. The uh, animation's great, the music's great. Love all of that as well. Um, and then the last thing I'll say is that um, this film was wildly successful. It is it was Japan's number one grossing movie for a long time before Demon Slayer, like a Demon Slayer movie, overtook that a couple of years ago. And I did a lot of research because in just I wanted to know why, because this felt, I mean, I don't want to say that I didn't think this movie was special, because I think technically this movie is special from an animation and even from a music standpoint and themes overall. But I don't know, I wasn't blown away by the story or anything like that. So I was like, why? And I kind of just chalk it up to maybe just right place, right time.
You were
And
talking about it was overtaken by don't know what that is, a Demon
Mhm.
Slayer type movie, whatever. Um, the word I thought you were going to say, this movie doesn't seem epic. It doesn't seem like it should be the top of anything. It's a
Yeah.
good movie. It's a, kids movie kind of thing, but like where you're
Mhm.
saying, it was the top of the heap. It was the number one for so long. And then
Yeah.
I don't see this as some type of Lord of the Rings or,
It's
just anything.
it's a
Super
much
fantastic. I love
yeah,
that movie.
it's a much more scaled back story, and traditionally those personal stories do not do well at the box office. Like this movie sold more tickets in Japanese history than any other Japanese movie, but the movie that sold the most tickets before this was Titanic. And if you look back also and think like James Cameron movies, for example, they are not anything special from a story standpoint. The stories are pretty secondary to the spectacle that they are. And I think that's kind of what I chalk this up to is that the spectacle of this sometimes trumps some of the story elements, and you go to the movie theater for spectacle. You don't go to the movie theater, expecting, huh, I just want to see a really good story. It's like, no, I want to see shit on screen that I really, really enjoy. So, like, this is the first Studio Ghibli movie to have Dolby sound. So the sound must have been amazing for this. And you can kind of tell because the no face when he drops the gold, things like that, you hear stuff like that, whereas in past Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli movies you wouldn't hear stuff like that as clearly. So um but this is also first and the first movie ever to make $200 million worldwide without being released in the US first. So this was a big hit, specifically in Japan. The rest of the world thought that this was good, but Disney, when they acquired the rights to this, Matt's right. They did a lot of work um, to try to dub it so that the voice did match up. It doesn't always work that way, but also because Studio Ghibli wouldn't wouldn't give them some concessions in terms of money to make on the back end, Disney was like, fine, fuck you. We're not going to market this that well. And it only made a couple $1 million in the US. So most of the gross is from Japan, and it's tailored specifically for a Japanese audience. But there's still some things in here, like animation, themes, and music that I still find very moving, beautiful, and a good flick to try out. So all of this to say, check out other Studio Ghibli movies. They all have a lot of interesting stuff to say. If you could get past the dialogue and the translation issues sometimes, would recommend seeing these in Japanese. But yeah, that's all.
All right. Excellent. Brian, we'll go you next.
Sure. I hadn't seen the movie before. I did watch the English version, so I do have the same feeling as others that you lose a lot in the translation. Excuse me. I actually had texted Matt on Wednesday asking if he knew if they were both available because I couldn't find the Japanese subtitled version also on Max. So I think I will try to find it and watch it because like Aaron, I feel there was things that I missed that one of the big things was I kept hearing them say, go to your baba, not ya baba. So I thought that was like her grandmother. Like it was endearing, which was really weird that her grandma treated her like such shit. So you're still on mute, Mike.
Nope. Now you're really muted. I think something went wrong.
Okay. Whoever created the space
No,
bar
no.
incident, God damn it.
Yeah.
It's Dan.
So are good. So
Yeah,
I was just gonna say there was one point when she's in the boiler room and like the assistant girl is there too, and they're like, "Who's this?" And he just goes like, "That's my granddaughter," and they never bring it up again. Or maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe I just missed it, but like that was just very weird to me too.
That's in the
Anyways,
Japanese
I'm sorry.
version
Go
as
ahead.
well.
Yeah, I think it was
It
a
is?
joke. I think it was supposed to be a joke.
Oh.
Like
Okay.
clearly I have 4 arms and I'm running a bathhouse. Spoiler, I don't know who that really is.
Ha 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 ha.
Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
The coal, the soot taking the coal, I kind of got a Fantasia moment from that scene. The girl who was treating Sin poorly and then, like you said, asking if she's okay. I thought I picked up on something where they were talking about she was helping cover for her. So she was kind of treating her bad in front of people, but really she was there caring about her because Haku wanted to protect her. So I don't know if I, I don't know what that is. Oh, the other version on there.
Yeah, they're
I
both
didn't say I worked hard at it, Hilty. I mean,
something about a fifth of vodka. I don't know.
I was Wednesday. I didn't drink at all Wednesday.
Oh,
So I
Did you watch? So you watched it on a Friday then?
no, I watched it on Wednesday. I put it in on HBO Max and then I went into subtitles and it didn't have Japanese. So I just watched the movie. So yeah, I got the idea of this was a coming of age. This is what love looks like. This is why you don't understand what's going on. And enjoyed that part of it. And I guess I don't really want to talk more about it, and we won't revisit it. I know, but I will definitely watch it with the subtitle in Japanese and see if I get a different idea about the movie. I was confused when when you were talking about the English or the American actors doing the dub over, because when I looked it up on IMDb, I didn't scroll all the way down to see the names.
IMDb
Yeah.
does not make it easy. They put it way down there.
Yeah. But yeah, it was David Ogden Stiers. I mean, he's done Beauty and the Beast voices. He was I believe, the clock in Beauty and the Beast, um, and you were Dan when you said he was on MASH. I was like, I don't remember a Japanese guy on MASH. He's thinking of Arnold on Happy Days, Mr. Miyagi. So, but I'm glad I scrolled down. And yeah, Tara Strong. She's done so much in DC, and she was Bubbles on Powerpuff Girls and the Clock in
Yeah,
Loki.
TVA clock. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a strong get. And
I see what you did there.
I do want to say I disagree with you. And James Cameron is a wonderful writer. He's done such things like Terminator and Rambo 2. And I think you forget about those. But True Lies actually was a well done movie.
Right. Because we all go to
Oh,
James
boy.
Cameron shit because of the story.
Mute him,
Right.
Tim. Mute him now,
Nope,
Tim.
you guys get to do this on your own. You did this to yourselves.
Oh, look
That's-
at Tim! Look at Tim being the Joker. Crap.
Once you went after him, you
Again.
knew it was coming.
These
I
are the
mean,
moments that I wish we weren't an audio only podcast.
Yeah.
I wish that
Yeah.
we had some video
So
involved.
He must have spacebarred himself. I don't know what happened there.
yeah,
Not the space bar.
yeah, enjoyed it. Didn't love it, but I knew I was missing something on it, so I will take the opportunity to watch it again.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I would have had time to watch both as well. So I'm with you.
Speaking of both, and I just tried it just to make sure. So I have Xfinity, and into my Xfinity remote, I just said Spirited Away, and it comes up 2002, whole separate box 2001, and there's actually a third box for a live action stage show. And I just wanted to make sure that second one, if I clicked on it, went to Max, and it does. So that the Japanese version is on Max. I don't know if going through the app screws it up or whatever, but it shows up if you search it through Xfinity. So that's how I'm going to watch it. Just so you know, it's there. It should be on Max for everybody.
All right. All right, Tim.
Yeah, so I talked to Wilden earlier in the week, and he said I struggled through this thing. It was the, English dubbed version, and I was like, well, I'm gonna try and avoid that. So I'm gonna spend a half hour looking for this fucking movie if I have to. And I went right to the Max app, and it had two options for Spirited Away right away. And I was like, let me take the Japanese version. So I'm confused as to the total amount of confusion here.
Well, then
But
if you're talking, we can't hear you, dude. If you're trying to talk shit right now, which I please, I hope that you are. Um,
Can you hear me
everything
now?
I said is
I can't.
accurate. What are you
I
talking about?
can a little bit, yeah.
All I was saying was thank you, Brian, for backing me up on that because I was not the only one that had trouble finding it on
No.
Max.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
I wasn't trying to be Tim about it. I was trying to be helpful.
I don't know why. I just so anyway, um, I'm a little hesitant to say how much I enjoyed this movie because you guys are going to go back and rewatch it, and then I'm going to hear shit about it. You're going to be like, "Yeah, I watched Japanese, didn't like it that time either because I didn't like it the first time." I did find um the first for a while when she's in the spirit world, for a better for a word lack of phrase, um I was confused. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? But I think you're supposed to be. I don't think you're supposed to know what's going on.
Can I ask something? I don't mean to interrupt. Okay, I absolutely mean
Well,
to
everybody
interrupt
else
you.
has. Go ahead.
But how would being in the spirit world, which is exactly what it is, a lack of a better term?
No, for me having a lack of a better term, I'm just going to
You
call it the
you
spirit world.
but you named exactly what it was. It's the spirit world.
Okay, thank you for all that, Brian. That was very helpful for everybody. Um,
But
so
did you see the size of that
for
chicken?
the fuck's sake, how many fucking people can I meet at one time? So there was confusion when she first gets there. And like what the hell is going on? But then it starts to come together. After she gets the job, and you're getting explained the job as she's getting explained the job. And so I took it as I'm supposed to be just as confused as she is. They wrote it that way on purpose. And then I'll start to figure it out later. And while all of it doesn't end up making sense, you do start to get a feel for what they refer to as the rules, right? There are some rules, and she doesn't know when she's breaking them at first, but then she does know when she's breaking them later. So I think it's written in a way to sort of make you go, what the fuck's going on? And then you just sort of start to get it together. I did look up, not a lot. I didn't do a lot of research, but somebody referred to this as a liminal journey. Have you guys heard this phrase before? I've never heard it.
As
A
opposed to
liminal?
subliminal?
Nope. A liminal journey.
Liminal? Well, that's what I mean. It sounds like it.
Right. I don't think they're connected there. It's it's not specific to just Japanese culture. It's a rite of passage where in the middle of the rite of passage, as you leave maybe like childhood or your first stage of life, and before you get to adulthood, there is a confusing time in the middle. And I think that this is a good visual representation of that concept. There's a word for the spirits in general, and it's I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right or not, but it's kami, Kami is what I came across.
I think it's kami,
Kami, great.
I
That's great.
believe.
And this is Japanese culture, which we wouldn't get. And this director said that even in his grandmother's time, he remembered that people believed that there were spirits all over the place. There were spirits in the water, there were spirits in the trees, there were spirits in between human beings. And it wasn't like a main deity, it was just like a population of spirits all around you. And he took that and put it into, this world here. I also wrote down Alice in Wonderland and Lion Witch in the Wardrobe and Harry Potter and Game of Thrones. Like, I like that you get into this world and it's got its own rules. In all of those stories, and some of them, the plots are better than others, of course, and easier to follow and whatever. But in all of them, you do get your own set of rules and characters and hierarchies. And I like a story where you leave reality and you get into a new place that has its own rules. And I did like that about this. Nobody mentioned Falcor, the luck dragon. I think we can't get out of this conversation with talking about Falcor, the luck dragon from the Never Ending Story, because I saw him in there at least twice, and I thought that was cool.
Miss you, Malo.
Yeah, indeed. The No Face character. I did not get this at all. Aaron brought him up, and I read this, and it makes so much sense after you read it. The No Face character reflects people around him. So when he runs into our main character, Chihiro, he's super nice and calm. When he runs into people who are greedy, he eats them and he wants more. And then once she gets him to eat the little turd ball, and he throws everything up, and he's just around her, or he's around the nice witch whose name is Zeniba. All of a sudden, No Face is very nice, and that's why she keeps him so he won't be affected. Because she does say something like, "You got to get out of this
She
bathhouse; it's
did.
bad for you."
Yep.
Right. And so I didn't get that on my first watch. I read that after, but it kind of makes a little more sense. So I absolutely loved the end of the movie when they come out of the tunnel and they're very confused by the amount of time that goes by. I agree. Like, they just get in the car and drive away like it's no big deal. But yeah, where the hell are they going? Like, they, like Aaron said, like, they don't have anything. But I did enjoy the fact that added a reality to what happened. This wasn't I hit my head and I fell asleep, or Wizard of Oz, where, all this happened in a dream. The idea is this was some kind of rite of passage, and it did take time, and the parents weren't aware because they were busy being pigs.
Gorging themselves.
Yeah, they were busy being pigs.
Was there a point I may help clarify, or somebody clarify for me? Didn't they say something like, if you're there overnight, you're stuck there forever, or something like that? Wasn't there a timeline put on it as how long they could be there before they were stuck forever?
Yeah, the guy Haku, is that his name? Haku? That first night he told her that if you're here overnight and you disappear, you'll be disappeared together forever. But he put a spell on her and then went and told her to get the job, and if you get the job, then you're safe.
Okay, but then you bring up the job, and I meant to bring this up a couple times.
Yeah.
And I was trying to ask you when you first started talking by raising my hand politely, and you ignored me.
Well, that was after some other stuff.
After I'd been yelled at, and I was trying. Anyway, about the job. Didn't Haku specifically say, go get the job from Kamaji? He's gonna try to get rid of you. Don't leave. Get the job from Kamaji.
Close. He said, go to Kamaji first. He'll help you to get to Yubaba. She gives the job, and she'll try to get you to go away.
Okay, so I missed that.
Yeah,
Because as soon as she left him, I was like, oh, well, she's screwed. This is going to be where the channel. And then I was like, they're just never going to talk about. She never got the job from Kamaji.
Mhm.
And Tim, you watched the dubbed version, right?
I did watch.
Yes.
Oh.
No.
Wait,
Tim,
sub. I always confuse them. I'm sorry.
We
In
watched the dubbed
Japanese,
version.
English subtitles. Yes.
In the English version, he never mentions going to Yababa afterwards. Because
Yeah,
I don't
he even
remember
says
that
something about he's going to try to get you to go to somebody else. Don't go to them. You have to get the job from him.
I know that he said go to. Let me look.
Well,
up
you
the
were
name.
reading.
It's true. He says go to Kamaji, and then he definitely says she's gonna try to get you to go away. He definitely says that. Now, whether or not Haku actually says Yubaba will get you the job, I don't know if I'm right on that.
And I could be
That's how
wrong
I
too, or I
remember
could
it,
have
but-
just missed that little bit, and it changed everything. So
Yeah. But overall, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just that just goes to the two different point of views on the movie. It seems like those who watched it on just English,
I'm thinking huge plot hole.
are missing so much. Where you guys are like, hey, this is what did you miss that it just shows the difference. In Akira, it wasn't this bad. I mean, this movie that gets such a good reputation, everything needs to be read and not listened to unless you know Japanese.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if I need to watch the English dubbed version just to see how bad it was, but I don't know that I want to do that to myself. So, and I love that Mike Wilden's on the screen going, "Don't do it, don't." I hit the space bar. You can't hear me, but just don't. I'll mute myself. That's what he's.
We can
Um,
hear you. He was kidding.
The space bar thing, man.
So the last thing I had to say is that his grandmother's time was when the spirit thing was still around, like they believed. I don't, that seems to have worn off, of course. And then he also, on some kind of summer vacation, had or some kind of trip, had come across a bathhouse, and he was fascinated by it. And that, like, for him, there were stories in it. You know, like if you think when you were a kid and you found some weird house that didn't fit in with anything else, you're like, wow, that's a special memory. I think that was kind of like that for him. And he was wanting to do a movie, like another movie, hadn't done one in a while. And most of the movies for that kids would watch, including, I think he had a daughter, and her daughter had a friend, his daughter had a friend or something like that. He didn't, most of the books and movies that were being made were about romance and stuff like that. And he was like, that's not what these kids are looking for. He wanted a female character that girls could look up to, like a female hero that girls could look up to. And it makes perfect sense after you read that she's always nice to everybody, and she never gives up, and she ends up overpowering the evil that's sort of stacked against her. So I like what he did. I liked it. I don't know if I loved it, but I had a pretty good experience with it. So I'm glad we watched this. Thank you, Matt.
Another thing that I was raising my hand about, like, thank you for bringing that no face description. Now,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a type of spirit that a Japanese person would recognize they're like, oh, it's, this is his personality or his power or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
If that was something I just completely missed, but knowing that makes so much sense, just making handfuls of gold for the greedy people. And, I'm
Right,
like,
right,
yep.
right.
As soon as you were saying that, I was like, fuck, that would have changed everything.
Yep. Yep.
Or
And
a
again,
big
after
chunk.
I watched it, right? Read it
Right.
after I watched it, and I was like, oh, that's because I didn't understand why he was so mean. And then all of a sudden he wasn't, just because he puked. I don't get nicer after I puke. Um, nope, that's all I got. Thanks, Matt. I'm
Well,
glad we
good.
talked about this movie. I mean, this is out of our comfort zone. So great pick.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm glad you guys liked it. I watched the English version as well. So I'm gonna go back. I will watch the sub version because I do enjoy that. I think I still liked it. Just to get my 2 cents out there, if you haven't figured it out. I love the animation. I love the music. The score is great. Seems very, other than a little bit in the beginning, very traditional. In what I consider like a traditional Japanese sort of music. Couple things. Tim, you talked about um, the confusion, right? We're supposed to feel a little bit of that confusion. I did anybody else think it was weird that she like adjusted to that situation like super fast? I know they had to move the movie along.
Right.
Like I get that that's part of it, but it's like your parents are missing. They turned into pigs. You're freaking out, and then the
You're like,
next
I'll wash
day,
this floor. I'll try
yeah,
really hard
oh,
washing this
I'm good
floor.
now. I'll just get this job.
Yeah.
So I did read that the original first cut of this was over 3 hours long.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, there you go.
that's
Probably
probably
some in there.
where some of the stuff ended up on the cutting room floor. And I will admit also this movie is as well. It's over 2 hours long.
Yeah,
For an
it's long.
animated movie, yeah.
Yeah. What was it, 205 or something, or two?
I did. I was like 40 minutes, 48 minutes into it, and I paused it, and I was like, how is there still an hour
Yeah.
and whatever left?
Yeah.
What is going
Yeah.
on here? But I never felt at the end like it took too long. I liked it.
I do think her being a 10-year-old who met up with Haku, who she trusted for some reason, helped her to transition quicker to
Sure.
what she was doing.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and we do find out later that Haku knows her because he's the river
Right.
spirit and he's seen her before. So maybe that's how they sort of explain that away. Like she feels comfortable because she actually remembers him, which is fine. That's fine. Doesn't bother me at all. No, I just thought it was really good. I don't know if think it was I built it up a lot in my own head. I had never seen this before I picked it. And hearing that it's the best Studio Ghibli movie and it won this award, and I think maybe I built it up a little too much because I was watching, I was kind of like, yeah, this is fine. This movie's good, it's good animation, it's good music, whatever. So yeah, I do want to watch it again in sub and just maybe that'll help a little bit. But um, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, she's a 10-year-old girl. It does get a little weird with her and the 1,000-year-old spirit Haku. They get it's kind of like, what's going on here?
I thought they were gonna kiss at one point.
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
one point where they're really close to each other and they're talking. It was kind of like, okay, and they didn't, and that's good. I'm glad they made that decision. That was a good decision. Um, uh, what else? Yeah, no, I thought the twin sister thing was kind of weird, but I get it. I read that Yababa was sort of based on Baba Yaga. Is that the right? It's a witch in some other culture's mythology.
I thought Baba Yaga
Yeah,
was the
guys.
boogeyman,
It was John Wick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John Wick. It was John Wick. Yep.
Russian boogeyman.
Yeah, yeah, Baba Yaga. Yeah, the guy who did the Haku voice, by the way, is James Marsden. Anyway,
James.
yeah, he was Max Goof for all of you Goofy movie fans. Um, and he's done a bunch of stuff. He's done a bunch of DC stuff and Afro Samurai and a bunch of other stuff. So he's a pretty if you heard him in some other stuff, you'd probably recognize him.
He's
But
been in a couple live action things too. 'Cause
yeah,
I
he
didn't know
has.
his
He has.
face
Yeah.
as a child actor, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, he even played like Duke in a G.I. Joe cartoon. So like he's been around the block a little bit. But yeah, no, I did enjoy it. I'm glad you guys liked it. I know I think between me and Dan, we're the only ones who ever pick animated movies. So I picked Akira the one time and picked this one. So I'm looking forward to watching it again. I thought there was something else I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. So I guess not. Yeah, just the weird Haku thing. But that was it. So yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it. Thanks for playing along. Appreciate it.
All right. So that sounds like that's a wrap on Spirited Away. And picking today, finding out that he's picking approximately 10 minutes before this movie started, or this discussion started, I should say, is Mike Wilden. Mike, what are we watching this week?
First of all, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. That was why I logged out earlier, to just reset that spacebar bullshit. I want to point out real quick, I chose Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, so I like animated movies too.
Oh, good point.
Is anybody else getting a tornado warning?
Yeah, sure did.
Yeah, I just got one on my phone. Sorry if you heard that.
Yeah.
All right, so I kind of just want to, I don't know. There's a stupid movie that I used to really enjoy when I was a lot younger, when I was in high school, and I haven't really watched it since then, and I'm kind of curious to see how it holds up. So, just for kicks, this week we're gonna watch A Night at the Roxbury.
Never seen it.
I have not either.
Excellent.
Wow.
It's
one of the many successful SNL skits turned. Oh wait.
right. It's not it's a stupid movie, but it's fun. I remember absolutely loving it, but I was also a teenager at the time, so let's see how that holds up today.
Wilden, when you told me that you were looking for that you were thinking about a dumb comedy from the early 2000s, this is not what I was expecting because it's not from the 2000s. So I was like,
Oh, my
oh,
bad.
Close
I
enough.
knew about it in the 2000s. That's why.
got it.
That's
Is
why I
this
said it
before
that
the
way. My
2000s?
apologies. You're correct.
98.
Probably like 98. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Those skits were mid
Yeah,
to
this
late
was
90s.
with Chris Kattan,
That's
Will
true.
Ferrell, and then the third one was always like the host, right? The
Mhm.
host always did the third guy.
The only one I know of is Jim Carrey. I never even saw
Tom
one of those
Hanks
skits
did
with
it
anybody
once.
else.
Martin
Tom
Short.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I remember Martin Short.
Oh. Huh. That's pretty
All right.
cool.
It is
Night at the
it is on
Roxbury.
Max.
Nice. Bonus.
Make sure that you find
Japanese
make sure-
version.
Stop.
make sure you find the dubbed version of this
Okay.
one.
Up, nerd.
So while this was going on, I went ahead and went to the app, and if you put SP in, it brings up Spirited and doesn't have anything about the Japanese version. If you put
It's
the
a
I
shame-
in,
it-
listen,
it's-
hey, I'm
It's
talking.
a fucking
I am
shame
talking.
that Spirited Away has more than the SP in there.
Once you put the I in, it brings up the other one.
Just use
So,
that and say
I
it. Just be
don't
like,
know.
Spirited Away.
Don't use
And
that.
it comes right up. All
choose
3
not to use
versions.
Why didn't you do that then?
That's what I
I
did.
didn't know that there were
I
like
chose
didn't know-
I chose the English version because I speak it English.
Well, and I did the same thing you
Sort
did,
of.
Brian. I typed in Spirit until I saw Spirited Away. I knew the movie was Spirited Away. I was like, oh, there it is. Cool. I didn't think that you had to watch 2 different versions in order to get like the same movie. Like that's so yeah. Anyway. Yeah, so Night at the Roxbury, yay.
That'll do it for this episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you as always for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourself a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.